So the past couple of weeks have been so for me in picking NFL games. I went 8-7 in week number 4. I went 8-6 week number 5. So I was looking to have a good week, and the Schleg Daddy delivered 12-3 last week. That brings my overall record through 5 weeks of picking games to 49-26, basically about 2 out of every 3. So obviously, I'd like to do a little bit better. I'd like to get to the point where maybe I get 3 out of every 4 right. But I'm getting there. I'm getting there. A much better week. I should praise myself, and you know I do, because the Schleg Daddy loves the Schleg Daddy above anything and everything else. So hopefully, if you took my picks last week and you entered your office pools or you bet people, hopefully you won some money. I know I did at work. That's why there's such a big smile on my face about last week's games and the Bears one. So no complaints from me whatsoever. And my fantasy teams all won. Again, no complaints whatsoever. It was a great week number 6 of NFL football action. So let's see how I do for week number 7. Remember, the games that I don't talk about, those picks, along with the ones I do talk about, are all in the description box down below, and you're more than welcome to give me your picks in the comments and go against me head-to-head and see how you do against the Schleg Daddy. The Thursday night matchup is an NFC West showdown between the Seattle Seahawks and the Arizona Cardinals. Now, on paper, you sit there and you probably say to yourself, and understandably so, that the Seahawks should be able to go into Arizona and handle business and dominate the Arizona Cardinals. But I caution you on this. Well, the Seahawks definitely look like the better team on paper. The Seahawks at times do struggle on the road. You've seen that in this season where they almost lost to the Houston Texans in Houston, and then they followed that up by losing to the Colts in Indianapolis. So don't necessarily write off the Arizona Cardinals' chances at this point. Now, with that being said, they're going to have a heck of a time getting Larry Fitzgerald involved in the passing game with Richard Sherman. I'm sure going to be matched up on him all day. They're going to be a big day out of Michael Floyd. And in the running game to help Carson Palmer, they're going to need to understand, Bruce Arians and that coaching staff, that their best running back that they have is Andre Ellington. He's the most explosive runner they have, and he's definitely their best pass-catching weapon out of the backfield. As a result, he needs to get more opportunities. He needs to play more snaps. They need to play Mendenhall a little bit less if they have any real chance. And now sitting at 3-3, if they have any real delusions or thoughts of trying to sneak into the wild card race in the NFC. I'm going to take the Seahawks in this matchup, even though they do struggle on the road. I think that they will just be too much. Their defense will be too good, and they'll be able to run the ball, play good defense on the road, which is always a formula to win in the NFL. For the early Sunday afternoon games, there are 2 games to me that kind of stand above the rest. That is the Dallas Cowboys traveling to Philadelphia to take on the Eagles in an NFC least matchup. The funny thing about this game is that afterwards, unless there's a tie, and yes, Donovan McNabb, you can have ties in the NFL, and I will always reference you whenever I talk about potential ties in a football game in the regular season. One of these teams is going to be over 500. It might be the only time any NFC East team, or NFC least team, is going to be over 500 this year. There's a very good chance either the Cowboys or the Eagles, unless they find a way to screw it up and play a tie game. One of them is going to be 4-3 in first place all by themselves and sitting pretty, with a chance to win the division. Oh, God. Now, obviously, since it involves the Dallas Cowboys, the national sports media is going to hype this up to be a much, much better game than what it probably will be, in terms of interest level. Frankly, I'll be honest with you, I think NFC East football is some of the most boring football there is. I just despise a lot of the teams in that division and the media attention that they get, a lot of times undeserved. And maybe that's part of it, sure. When you look at the matchup for the Cowboys, it looks like they're going to be going into this game without DeMarco Murray, which is definitely a loss for them. So Joseph Randle, the rookie out of Oklahoma State, is going to have to step in and fill some relatively big shoes. Now, Romo is going to have a very good day, I would anticipate, going against the Philadelphia Eagles defense that really can't stop much of anybody, either on the ground or especially in the air. Now, the Eagles offensively, it looks like Nick Foles will be starting again. The interesting thing is going to be if Nick Foles plays well again in Week 7 against the Cowboys. Are they really going to go back to Michael Vick, or is Chip Kelly going to stay with Nick Foles? The Cowboys really can't stop anybody either. They really can't. They did a little bit better job against the Redskins, but their defense is not great. It's banged up, especially on the front line. So you would expect LaShawn McCoy to have a big day. You'd maybe expect Deshaun Jackson on the outside to have a big day, and Nick Foles himself to have a big day. I'd expect this to actually be all the grief I'm giving the game. I'd actually expect it to be an interesting, entertaining game, but I do expect the Philadelphia Eagles to win. The other matchup I'm looking at is a pair of 4-2 teams. The Cincinnati Bengals traveling to Detroit to take on the Lions. This matchup on the surface would seem to favor the Detroit Lions a little bit because Matthew Stafford plays pretty well at home. But you do have Calvin Johnson. Even though he played last week, he didn't play well. He didn't play much because of his injury. I have questions about how much he's going to play again in week number 7. How hurt is he really? They really don't have much in the passing game outside of him. You could talk about Joseph Fourier and his 3 touchdowns last week. That's pretty much all he's doing right now, as they used to say about Chris Carter, is catching touchdown passes. There's not a lot to work with in that passing game for Matthew Stafford. The Cincinnati Bengals, this is one of these teams, again, that I think their talent level is higher than the level that they're playing at right now, if that makes sense. Sometimes I think they make the games harder on themselves than they need to. See Buffalo last week. I think sometimes they commit some stupid mistakes, which the Bengals have been prone to do over the years, both on and especially off the field. But I'm going to take the Cincinnati Bengals here to win by maybe a field goal. I do think they're a better all-around team than the Detroit Lions. They need a quality road win. This would be the quality road win, and I think they get it this week. 2 late Sunday afternoon games stand out to me. The 49ers traveling to Tennessee to take on the Titans. You've got Colin Kaepernick, who really has not been all that good. And even the game last week against the Cardinals, it was basically, if he wasn't throwing the ball to Vernon Davis, he was doing absolutely nothing else and wasn't getting the ball to anybody else. Now, that's incumbent upon Anquan Bolden and Kyle Williams and Jonathan Baldwin and those fellas to get open better in the passing game, yes. But it's pretty much a one-dimensional passing attack for the San Francisco 49ers. It's either throw to Vernon Davis or you run the ball, and that's pretty much it. In terms of the Tennessee Titans, I know I've seen some Titan fans that are desperately waiting for Jake Locker to return because they think Fitzpatrick isn't going to get the job done for him. I just wonder how much different they really are as a ball club with Fitzpatrick as opposed to Jake Locker. I don't think Jake Locker was exactly setting the world on fire, and Fitzpatrick hasn't exactly been terrible. Yes, they were 0-2 with him as a starter, but look at who they played. They played an undefeated Chiefs team and played them tough until the last few minutes. And then you look at last week, they played a tough Seattle team in a tough place at Quest Field and played them very, very tough. So it's not like the Titans have lost a whole lot, in my opinion. And I expect them to really, really give the 49ers some trouble at home. I really do. Now, they are going to need Chris Johnson to have a Chris Johnson-esque game if they're going to have any real chance of winning, in my opinion. And I don't expect that to come from him. It hasn't after 6 games in this season. I don't expect Game 7 to be a whole lot different, so I am going to take the San Francisco 49ers to win. You've got the Cleveland Browns traveling to Lambeau Field to take on Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers. Now, I could just boil it down very simply. I'll take Aaron Rodgers over Brandon Weeden any effing day of the week. That's pretty much all the analysis you need to get, but you probably expect a little bit more. Look, after Cleveland traded Trent Richardson after week 2, they went on a nice little stretch, played some favorable matchups, won 3 straight games, and that's good for them. Of course, they lost Brian Hoyer, their better quarterback, so that's definitely hurt them. I think reality will start to catch up with the Cleveland Browns just a little bit. I said before the season started they were maybe like a 7-9, at very most 8-8 football team, and that's exactly what I look at them as. A solid but not spectacular defense and an offense that has some pieces, most notably Josh Gordon, who's a stud, and Jordan Cameron, who's played well, but he's kind of regressed a little bit the past couple of weeks in terms of his production. The bottom line is they still really have nothing in a running game. The fact that people say, oh, they've got Willis McGahee, get the fuck out of here. Willis McGahee, really? Really? Ugh, that's your running game. Exactly, that's the point. I'm going to take the Green Bay Packers here. I think this schedule stretch sets up really well for them. Don't be surprised if the Green Bay Packers go on a nice run and win several games in a row, and the Cleveland Browns start slowly crashing back down to earth and become more of a middling team, which is what I expect from them in 2013. The Sunday night matchup is the game of the week for the media, and probably actually in all reality for us as football fans. You've got Peyton Manning returning home with his Denver Broncos to Indianapolis to take on his old team and Andrew Luck's new team, the Indianapolis Colts. And this is an interesting matchup with a lot of subplots and a lot of dramas involved in it, especially Irsay's comments earlier in the week, which, of course, the Peyton Manning ass slickers automatically jump to defense of Peyton for no damn reason and totally dismissed everything Irsay was saying. Irsay is a bit of a whack job and a bit of an idiot, and I'll give you that. But not everything he said was total bullshit. I get what he was saying, and it wasn't necessarily just a knock on Peyton Manning. It was talking about the philosophy. They were such an offense-first team for so many years, and what did it result in? One Super Bowl win and a Super Bowl loss and a lot of early playoff exits. And that is 100% factually true. It's not crazy that Jim Irsay said that. Now with an Andrew Luck, they put focus more on being a well-constructed all-around team maybe, and they're a better team that'll be better equipped in future years to make more deep playoff runs and win maybe more than one Super Bowl like Peyton Manning did. Peyton Manning is, well, unless you believe in Johnny Unitas, is the greatest Colt of all time. His greatest Indianapolis Colt of all time, at least, and Unitas was the greatest Baltimore Colt of all time. But Andrew Luck, he's kind of in that Aaron Rodgers role when Rodgers took over for Brett Favre. The big shoes to fill, and Luck's done a hell of a job in filling them. It's a great matchup. The Broncos, I think, are a better offensive team in theory, but there could be a lot of pressure here for Peyton Manning to go out there and really do well. He's the greatest regular season quarterback of all time. But for some reason, I just like the Colts in this game. This is my upset special of the week. The Broncos did not impress me at all last week against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Their defense, even with Von Miller returning and, Champ Bailey getting back in the fold, it's still not a very good defensive unit. Reminds me a lot, like I said before, of the 98 Minnesota Vikings. I was pretty much all offense and very, very little defense. Had one or two star players on that 98 Vikings defense, guys like John Randall, Hall of Famer, and then solid players like Robert Griffin, but not a great defense at all. And, that ended up being in part the downfall of that 98 Vikings team, which is the same thing that could happen to the Broncos in 2013. I don't expect this Broncos team to go undefeated in the regular season. At some point in time, their offense is going to have a bad game or two, and their defense isn't going to be able to stop somebody when they need to. And I think that could be this week. I think the Colts are going to want to make a stand, make a statement, and say that, it's great what all Peyton Manning did for them over the years, but it's a new team, it's a new day, and Andrew Luck is their man, and I think Luck's going to step up to the challenge and go toe-to-toe and blow for blow with Peyton Manning. So give me the Indianapolis Colts in a Sunday night mini shocker. I really don't have a lot to say about this Monday night matchup this week. Look, the Vikings are bad, and the Giants absolutely stink. In my opinion, right now, the Giants are the worst football team in the National Football League, unless you maybe look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're that bad. This, on the surface, has no interest to me whatsoever, which means it could potentially be a great game. You've got Josh Freeman making his first start for the Minnesota Vikings. Most people probably say he's an upgrade over Christian Ponder, but what does that really mean? It's not like Freeman has ever really set the world fully on fire himself any damn ways in Tampa. And it's not like he has any better weapons in Minnesota than he had in Tampa Bay. He might have a coaching staff that believes in him a little bit more than that D-bag Greg Schiano, I'll give you that. But I look at this matchup and I say, God, the Giants have got to win a game at some point. Eli's got to have a game where he doesn't turn the ball over a ton. They can run the ball well. Maybe their pass rush in New York actually shows up a little bit. So I'm taking the Giants this week. There's really no method or the madness to it other than they're at home and they're 0-6, and I think they got to win at some point. So it might as well be against a not very good Vikings team who got steamrolled last week at home coming off of a bye week against Carolina.